Wow. Bad news for boxing fans who wanted Canelo to step up and fight one of the great names at super middleweight. It looks like Canelo may fight his next fight in Mexico against Avni Yildrim. Link will be in the description. It says Canelo versus Avni Yildrim to take place February 27th in Canelo's birthplace of Guadalajara, Mexico. Canelo Alvarez is ready for a homecoming, right? It says, you guys see, Yildrim is the next opponent for Canelo due to the WBC mandatory protocol, Reynoso said in the interview to Boxing Scene. Yildrim is a very good fighter and is willing to fight the best. If Yildrim is able to do it, we're willing to do it. Why not? And this is a picture of Yildrim and Canelo in Canelo's gym when they were sparring. So this is one of Canelo's sparring partners he's used, so he knows his style. It says, Canelo, he has wanted to fight in Mexico for a long time. He's a tremendous, important icon for the country, WBC President Suleiman told reporters. He's the best fighter in the world. He represents so much for Mexico, and he wants to give a great moment of happiness to the country. So, you know, anybody who thought Canelo could have a bigger fight, you know, why not fight David Benavidez in Mexico if you want to give a treat to fans of Mexico, you know? That's for one. The other thing is, it is extremely contradicting and confusing what the WBC has done, right? It says boxing's pound for pound king plans on returning February 27th to fight the WBC mandatory challenger, Avni Yildrim. Now, this is confusing for a variety of reasons. For one, Avni Yildrim is coming off of a loss. If you pull up his box rec, he's coming off of a loss to Anthony Durrell. And it's all on YouTube. You guys could watch it, right? He fought Anthony Durrell for the WBC title, and he was upset. And you see Anthony Durrell doing the backflip and raising his hand because he just beat Anthony Durrell just beat Yildrim. After this fight, Anthony Durrell, after becoming a WBC champion for the second time, he went on to fight David Benavidez. Now, I went to this fight. It was on the Errol Spence and Sean Porter card. And you see the condition of Durrell's face. I thought Durrell was boxing well, but ultimately David Benavidez proved to be too much and really hurt Durrell, and the cut didn't make it any better. And David Benavidez ended up beating Anthony Durrell for the WBC strap that you have on him. So the whole time this went on, you never heard Canelo say, hey, I want to fight Anthony Durrell conqueror, David Benavidez. You know, he's the guy that beat the guy. But now we're seeing reports that Canelo is going to fight Yildrim. And they're saying it is because Yildrim is the mandatory. It says he's the WBC mandatory challenger, right? Now, this is still confusing. Here's why. Because before Canelo sued Golden Boy, he had stated that he wanted to fight Yildrim after David Benavidez lost his title on the scale. And I'm giving you guys the chronological history. The WBC approved this. They said their board of governors, their committee, voted in favor of making this fight next because that's what the direction Canelo wanted. Exhibit A. It says Yildrim fight for the vacant super middleweight title championship. Canelo is still in search of an opponent, blah, blah, blah. And you guys will see, it says the WBC Board of Governors has voted 36-1 in favor of Alvarez, the multi-division world champion who holds the franchise designation to fight against Yildrim, WBC president said, right? So they already told Canelo in August of this year, in the pandemic, they told Canelo, hey, go ahead and fight Yildrim. After David Benavidez lost his title on the scale during the pandemic as the first fight back was Showtime's schedule. They voted for this, right? Breaking everything. I'm just showing you guys the paper trail. WBC verified Twitter. It says Canelo Alvarez, August 18th. You guys see, you should see all this. August 18th, Canelo Alvarez versus Avni Yildrim for the WBC vacant title, right? It says the WBC Board of Governors has voted 36-1 for Canelo Alvarez, the multi-division champion who holds the franchise champion belt designation, blah, 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 to fight mandatory challenger contender Avni Yildrim. So this guy's coming off of a loss, as I just showed you. He has not fought since this fight with Darrell, and he's coming off a loss. And somehow, even though David Benavidez was a two-time WBC champion who first lost his belt for cocaine and regained the belt by stopping Anthony Darrell, somebody who had never been stopped before, to reclaim that title, somehow Avni Yildrim in the WBC's world is ranked higher than this man you see on screen, David Benavidez, which, might I add, would be a better fight for the fans, and it would be a better fight for boxing in Mexico. But somehow the WBC planned this with Canelo, so now he has to go the path of least resistance, as he just beat the hell out of Callum Smith to become the WBC champion. So you could see the WBC is in on it with Canelo, and they're allowing this easier course instead of going through the gauntlet of whatever is available. We all know that David Benavidez, who just stopped Anthony Darrell to become and recapture, then later had a miscalculation, which is something that he should have been on point with, but he stopped Darrell. Yildrim lost to Darrell. So how on earth is Yildrim the mandatory? That's one question. The other issue is this. When they voted earlier this year and said Canelo gets to fight Yildrim, they said they voted 36-1 in favor of Alvarez getting the Yildrim fight. However, after this point, unbeknownst to the WBC at the time when they ordered Canelo to fight Yildrim, unbeknownst to them, Canelo was going to later sue Golden Boy, DAZN, and get out of his contract. And then when he got out of his contract, he fought against Callum Smith, who was not Yildrim. And they said that the winner of this fight had to now fight Avni Yildrim, right? An unnecessary fight. So when Canelo switched directions, you see the WBC coddled and catered to him, and then switched directions too and said, hey, this fight is for the WBC. Now that Canelo has sued Golden Boy, we're making this particular fight for the WBC title. So as you guys see, the WBC is just doing whatever they want. They also said when Canelo was going to fight or become the franchise champion, that the WBC belt was non-transferable. But then we later seen Teofimo Lopez fight Lomachenko, who was also a franchise champion, and they said the winner of that fight actually gets the WBC champion. But when Canelo's mandatory was Jamal Charlo, as you guys will see in this article, it says Saul, June 19th or June 26, 2019, Canelo the franchise champion, right? And they outlined all the rules. They said Canelo's so special to boxing, so he shouldn't have any mandatories, right? They said the designation is non-transferable. It is exclusively to the fighter that we basically designate. But then Lomachenko fought Teofimo and he got the belt. So how did Lomachenko lose his franchise title? And now they're saying Devin Haney is not a champion, or he's an email champion. You see how confusing this is? But here's the other piece. It says, with Canelo's appointment as franchise champion, WBC interim champion Jamal Charlo is now confirmed as the WBC middleweight champion of the world. Now, when Canelo got special treatment yet again in the WBC, agreeing 36-1 that Canelo gets to fight Yildrim, right? They used Canelo's franchise champion designation status from 160 to justify why he had first dibs on Yildrim when David Benavidez lost his belt on the scale, right? They said, oh, other people wanted it, the Yildrim fight, like David Benavidez, Callum Smith. They wanted to fight Yildrim for the vacant WBC belt after Benavidez lost it. But the WBC voted, as I keep showing you, 36-1 in favor of Canelo Alvarez. And they said the reason that they decided Canelo gets the crack at Yildrim because he was the franchise champion at 160. But now they're saying he has to fight Yildrim because that's his mandatory challenger. So my question to you is this. When they said he was the franchise champion, they said the franchise champion doesn't have any mandatories, as I've highlighted here. It says the franchise champion shall enjoy special status with respect to his or her mandatory obligations, saying you're so important to the world of boxing that we can't burden you with a mandatory status. So if he got the ruling to fight Avni Yildrim because he was a franchise champion, then how on earth is the franchise champion now have a mandatory challenger when they just told you right here that the franchise champion had special status with no mandatory obligation? Henceforth, at the bottom, which I've also highlighted and showed you, Jamal Charlo was Canelo's mandatory, and he didn't have to fight Jamal Charlo. Man, the WBC has really done a number on their program, and this looks extremely bad. So an African-American fighter from Houston, Jamal Charlo, got bumped up to a title without having to fight Canelo as the mandatory challenger and the interim champion because they didn't want to put Canelo in there with Jamal Charlo. And then when Canelo decided to move up and fight Kovalev and move up to super middleweight, they're saying he has mandatories. But they just said when he became a franchise champion that he don't have to fight Charlo, who was his mandatory. So why does he have to fight Yildrim, his mandatory, at 168? This is very inconsistent. It is very confusing, and it is apparent that Canelo Alvarez just holds the cards, and the WBC is willing to bend and do whatever Canelo Alvarez wants, even if it doesn't make sense, even if they have to break their own rules. They also upped the amount of clenbuterol that you can have in your system, but it was after Canelo Alvarez, a little bit after Canelo Alvarez and a few other fighters like Canelo Alvarez promotion, Julio Cesar Martinez and Ray Vargas, and some other fighters. And the 5 fighters that I could think of hail from Mexico, and past fighters like Eric Morales and also Francisco Vargas failed for clenbuterol, who also hail from Mexico. Now the WBC changed their rules about how much clenbuterol you can have in your system before it's deemed a fail. I mean, this is just bad news for Canelo. As far as his fight, it's a homecoming fight, whatever. I think the other thing that makes it worse for Canelo is after watching what he did with Callum Smith, you have to put it somewhere like Mexico and hope they tune in, because that wouldn't be a big fight. He looked superb versus Callum Smith. So who wants to really watch this? So it's still, even though, it might generate a crowd because Canelo hasn't fought at home in a while, worldwide, this is not a big fight. This is not a big fight for DAZN or whatever network this falls on. It's really not that big of a fight. I don't know how many people are be chomping at the bit to watch Canelo fight a guy coming off a loss. This is pretty embarrassing what the WBC has done and created this constant collusion and confusion and contradictions with their program. One minute they say the belt's non-transferable, then all of a sudden with Lomachenko and Tio, it is transferable. One minute they say Canelo is ordered to fight against Avni Yildrim, and then Canelo sues DAZN, Golden Boy gets out of his contract, and then you see Canelo Alvarez fighting against Callum Smith, who is not Avni Yildrim. But I thought he had to fight Avni Yildrim, and they agreed that he had to fight Avni Yildrim, passing up on guys like David Benavidez, who lost his title on the scale, but then stopped the guy, a quality guy and 2-time champion, in Anthony Durrell. But he don't get a shot at the belt. So it's all politics, and this is just embarrassing. I know David Benavidez has to be probably annoyed because he feels he would give a better effort than what Callum Smith did. And, they're just coddling Canelo Alvarez. The world sees it. He looked great versus Callum Smith, but, You know, the walls are closing in. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Before I get out of here, use my link ESPN Plus. It's $5.99 a month. There's a ton of content. ESPN Plus, they have docuseries, documentaries, archive footage, and much more. ESPN Plus, you can get it as a standalone app, again, $5.99, or get the bundle. ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus, all 3 apps for one low price of $12.99. Very embarrassing stuff. Now they're saying Canelo has a mandatory, but when Charlo was his mandatory, allegedly he didn't have obligations of a mandatory. And then if you want to try to spin it and say, hey, he was the franchise champion only at 160 and not 168, then why did they say that we are allowing in August Canelo to fight against Avni Yildrim and pass up the likes of then Diamond WBC champion Callum Smith or David Benavidez, who held that WBC title twice? Then why did those guys not get the fight with Avni Yildrim, and they voted 36-1 in favor of Alvarez? So justify that. Either way, you are trapped. Either way, it doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction. You gave Canelo special privilege with the franchise champion. You alleviated his mandatory and Jamal Charlo, but now you're saying he has a mandatory. Then if you say, oh, that was only at 160, not at 168, then why did you rule 36-1 in favor of Alvarez getting the Avni Yildrim fight in August, which didn't happen only because Canelo was upset with Golden Boy and sued them? Why did you order this fight back then? Either way, you're trapped. WBC looks bad. Checkmate. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more sports. Get unlimited access to premium content with an ESPN Plus subscription. ESPN Plus offers a variety of content, including specials, behind the scenes, docuseries like Bruce Lee's Be Water, and much more. With an ESPN Plus subscription, you get access to a ton of classic archive fights and replays from boxing and the UFC. Big names like, hi, I'm Mike Tyson, come and watch my fight. Floyd Mayweather, easy work, I'm rich. And Manny Pacquiao, yes, it's up to my promoter, just to name a few. If that's not enough, you could get the ESPN Bundle, which includes ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus. All 3 apps, one low price. You don't want to miss out. Make sure you guys click that link in the description box of all of my videos. Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.